Before we start this episode of Sports Legends with Bevo, a shout out to two of our sponsors, Ryan Bridges from Elders Goa and also Steve Chapman from Victor Harbour Motor Co. Make sure you see both those guys if you're looking to buy a car or buy a house or sell a car or sell a house. You'll see their details up on the screen now. Obviously, two local legends, so make sure you get behind them and really appreciate their support. Hey folks, you are in for an absolute treat. This is a very special Comedy Legends with Bevo, a man who's written 16 novels, 7 sitcoms, including The Young Ones, Mr. Bean, Blackadder, just to name a few, a musical called We Will Rock You. He's done it all. His name is Ben Elton. Ben Elton, welcome to Comedy Legends for the first time.
Thanks a lot, Bevo. It's nice to be here.
Now, you're in Australia and you've also got a big tour that's happening around New Zealand as well. You'll be here in Adelaide next month on the 11th November, and you're doing a very special evening with the one and only H.G. Nelson, who many people know around Australia. And it's about your latest book, What Have I Done? Tell us what people can expect if they come along.
Well, do you know what? That's such a good question, Bevo, because I don't know. This will be the first time I've gone on stage not having any idea. I mean, normally when I go on stage, I'm a stand-up comic, and I've worked on the material for months and months, and I know exactly what I'm going to deliver. But this is new territory for me. H.G. Nelson, who I've known a little bit. I knew him back in the 90s, but he's a raging fella, and he's a good improviser. And he's going to be talking to me about my book, and he's going to be chatting to the audience and inviting questions. And who knows, I could have been cancelled by the time I get to Adelaide. But, I think it'll be a illuminating and a lively chat about my life in comedy. And who knows where it will go from there. It will be on stage, me and him. It'll be my first double act since I was in Australia with the late, great Rick Mail about 4 decades ago. So this will be an interesting time.
Yeah, tell us a bit more about the book as well. What have I done? Because, as I mentioned, it's your 16th book overall, your very first autobiography about yourself. Must be a little bit interesting writing a book about yourself, I can imagine. And yeah, it gives a bit of an idea for the people that buy the book what they can expect.
Well, Bevo, it's actually, I've done 16 novels already. This is a whole new departure, my first work of non-fiction. And yeah, it's called What Have I Done? My autobiography, and that's exactly what's in the book. All the stuff I've done, what I did, when I did it, and who I did it with. It's the chronicle of a long life in the comic arts, and there's some personal stuff there, not least about my journey to becoming an Australian, because, again, mentioning Rick Mail, it was when I was on tour with him in 1986 that we had the wonderful Jam Tarts, all-girl band from Fremantle supporting us, and I fell in love with the bass player, and a whole different part of my life opened up. And now, of course, I'm an Australian as well as a Brit, and we live in Fremantle, WA. So look, my whole life is there. All the personalities, the many, many, many inspiring friendships and work collaborations, a few that perhaps didn't work out so well. I've been very honest in this book, hard, not least hard on myself. But I'm standing in my truth, Bevo, as young people say. And as my daughter added, she said, "Yes, Dad, and it sounds like you're up to your neck in it."
I absolutely love it. And I mentioned at the start, you've been involved in many amazing sitcoms over the years, but The Young Ones, as well as Mr. Bean and Blackadder, 3 of the big famous ones. But being involved with those, was it exciting or daunting, Ben?
Well, I don't know about daunting. I mean, I was young, I was eager, and I had a pretty good opinion of what I could offer. And fortunately for me, people wanted me. I mean, on The Young Ones, it was Rick who brought me in. I'd known him at university, and he had this chance to do something for the BBC. And he said, "Look, I'm not a writer. You are, Ben. Come and get involved." And then on Blackadder, Richard Curtis, the great British writer, invited me to join him. The first series of the Blackadder had been something of a mixed bag and not considered a great success. And so Rowan dropped out as a writer, and Richard invited me to join. So I had a lot of reason to feel confident. They were happy and exciting times. They weren't always easy. I talk a lot about how The Young Ones was made and how Blackadder was made. And amongst the fun, there was an awful lot of tension and some grit in the pearl, to say the least. So I think people who are interested in comedy will find the book very interesting, because for the first time, I who really know, are talking about how Young Ones came about, and likewise Blackadder. I mean, quite a few of the actors have had their say over the years. But if you want to know the truth, go to the writer.
Can't wait to have a read of it. Now, obviously, as we mentioned before, there are very successful shows that you've been involved in, but does it become more challenging when they become so successful as well, Ben?
No, not really. But of course, I was very fortunate to do pretty well early on, and I've had a lot of hits since and quite a few failures. But to be honest, I address them all the same. And at the time when I'm doing it, I think it's the best work I ever did, whether it's a big hit or something that turns out not to have been a big hit. I'm always passionate about it at the time. And I don't think about success or failure. I don't think you can approach a work of art, and for what it's worth, my work is art. I mean, it's comic art. And you can't approach a creative act anticipating its conclusion. You don't know what it's going to look like, and you don't know how it's going to be perceived. And if you think about either of those two things, I think your eye will very quickly go off the ball. The best thing you can do as an artist is to please yourself, to say to the audience, this picture I've painted, or this sitcom I've written, or this story I've devised is my best effort. It's what I think is a good piece of work, and I hope you enjoy it. But if I tried to think, oh, I really want to impress you, I want you to like it, and I'm going to make you like it, and then lots of people will buy it, I think you'll produce something worthless. I'm in terms of art, I'm with Polonius, who advised Hamlet, above all to thine own self be true. And I think as an artist, you have to be true to yourself. So success or failure, I think about neither of them. I'm pleased when they succeed. And I'm sad when they don't, but I always move on to the next project with equal vigor.
And what are some of the projects that didn't so much have success, and how did you, I guess, overcome those challenges?
Well, I've had a couple in Australia, I did a big live variety show using only Australian talent, which, was treated in very weirdly. And I discussed that quite a lot in the book. There's a good chapter on my efforts to penetrate the comic arts here in Australia, which hasn't always been welcomed with open arms. My relationship with Australia is wonderful, and audiences in Australia. But with the arts media establishment, maybe not so much. You'll have to read the book to find out where the bodies lie on that respect. But it's been fun. When I say failures, I don't see any of my work as a failure, because, as I say, I always approached it as an honest effort. So you learn from it and you move on. I talk about some of the stuff, like, for instance, some of the stuff that failures is more like things that happened in my creative life where it didn't go as I might have wanted it to go. Right. For instance, once upon a time, I opened the phone I answered the phone, and a voice I knew but had never met on the other end said, Ben, it's Elton. It said, Elton, it's Elton. I've always wanted to say that. And it was Elton John. And he was ringing up to say that he wanted me to think about a film for his company, and he had an idea for it. And I thought I had a better idea. And all I can say is that in the end, there was no film. So I discussed that. So that I wouldn't call that a failure or a success. It's something that never happened, but could have happened. I had a lot of fun along the way and got to know Elton John, who is, as you can imagine, as wonderful a person as you might think. But the show never came about. And I don't know, you can call that what you will. But yeah, I talk about many things that never saw the light of day. And some of those are the very best stories. My goodness, there's good Beatles stories in there. I nearly did something with the Yellow Submarine, but I'm going to leave it for the book.
Oh, wow, that's incredible. I was watching some best bits of Blackadder just to, get my excitement around today's interview as well, because I was a huge fan of Blackadder growing up as well, Ben, and just remembered how good it was watching some of those best bits last night. And some of the insults that the great Rowan Atkinson used to do, that you were a writer of back in the day, were absolutely brilliant. What were some of your favourites, though?
Do you know what? I don't remember a single line from the Blackadder. I know Baldrick kept saying he had a cunning plan, but that's about it. I mean, we created a new language for Blackadder, Richard and I, and I'm very pleased with it. And I'm proud that it still is part of English, really. For instance, the whole rhythm of language. You're as small as a very small thing that's got a degree in being small from the University of Tiny, or so. These kind of elegant Blackadder sentences, which were great fun to work on and to write for brilliant artists. When you're writing for an actor as clever as Rowan or say Stephen Fry or Hugh Laurie, it's a tremendous inspiration to make your writing even better because you can hear their voices in your mind as you write. But I don't remember any of it now. I don't watch my shows back. I haven't watched the Blackadder in 40 years. I haven't watched a Young Ones in 40 years. I don't look back. I always look forward. So people are always quoting Blackadder lines to me, and I don't recognize any of them.
What about making a show like Mr. Bean, which was amazing and certainly one of my favourite shows growing up, as many people were the same, no doubt, as well. But what was it like making a show that was non-verbal versus a verbal show with Rowan Atkinson?
Well, look, it sort of gone into the cuts that I had co-created Mr. Bean. I didn't. Mr. Bean was the creation of Rowan Atkinson and Richard Curtis. And when I was working with them on Blackadder, I wrote one Mr. Bean synopsis, because as you say, it's not dialogue. So you write a descriptive piece to make the comedy. And I did the one on Mr. Bean's exam, when he cheats at an exam and he's in the exam room and he's trying to see the other blokes with it. And that was the one I worked on. So it's a little bit of a comedy myth that I'm really part of the Mr. Bean team. I was an auxiliary. I was invited in and did a bit of work, but that's really more Richard and Rowan's work.
No, understandable. As someone who's written across so many mediums, which gives you the most creative freedom and which one frustrates you the most, Ben?
I think the most freedom I have as an artist, well, I'm always free as an artist because I don't write anything I don't want to write. But if that means that I don't write something people want to show, then I guess I'm in chains, even though I've been free, to sound rather grand. So I feel totally free as an artist. I never compromise and I never try and please anyone. And I certainly don't accept censorship, although I do accept advice and editing. But yes, I might write something that because people don't want to do it because I won't compromise. Like, for instance, my last novel, Identity Crisis, I had a chance for a big TV adaptation, but the company involved really wanted me to strip the politics out of it and strip out the passion and the discussion of the culture wars and the identity wars. And so I didn't do it. So, in a way I was constrained, but at least I didn't do something I didn't want to do. The thing I feel most free is as a stand-up, because that's the most subjective part of my writing. I'm really telling you who I am and what I think. When I'm writing a sitcom or a novel, it's more objective. I'm working through imaginations, characters that I've imagined, and then I'm finding voices for them, and they're not my own voice. Obviously I've created those voices, but they're kind of, in a way, one removed from me personally, because I'm talking about, I might write the character of a fascist. Well, I'm certainly not a fascist, but I could write one in a book. But when I'm on stage as a stand-up, it's entirely subjective. I'm really telling my truth, as young people would put it. It's heightened and it's comedic, but I'm really giving you how I feel about myself and the world as I stand. So stand-up comedy is probably the freest I ever am as an artist.
Does it make you sad the way the world's become now, where people just can't take a joke anymore? And you mentioned before that you're worried about being cancelled. Does that, I guess, frustrate you? And have you had to change the way you approach comedy based on the way the world's become now, Ben?
No, and I don't think that it is true that there's this modern trope that, you can't say anything anymore. I don't think that's the case. I think there's always been the constraints of good manners and also fashion, but I've never been in any danger of using hate speak as part of my comedy, so I don't feel in any way constrained in the modern idiom. I mean, we do have a bit of a more cancel culture with the whole internet making it possible for a small group of people to make their outrage sound very large indeed. And I talk about it in the book. What have I done? I talk about the fact that I was a victim of a very early Twitter pile-on when I tried my show in Australia, live from planet Earth. And I think the internet does allow for a disproportionate amplification of angry people and splenetic voices. And so, yes, there is the possibility that you might make a subtle comment on a modern issue of the day, be it trans or be it race or refugees, and that can either be misinterpreted or taken out of context. And before you know it, you've blown up all across the internet, and everyone's talking about somebody you don't even recognize, and it turns out to be you. Now, that hasn't actually happened to me, although I've had the odd taste of it. So, yeah, I mean, in the modern world, there is the possibility for being misunderstood, but I'm always very clear about what I say on stage. And I ask the audience, please never quote me out of context, because what I say is complex and it's subtle. And the modern world always seems to want simplicity and easy answers. So, yeah, I mean, there's something to think about. But I think comedy is almost certainly as lively and as effective as it's ever been. And I think, you know, the truth is there is no cancel culture in comedy. And the proof of that is that Netflix seems to be full of multi-millionaire male comedians doing routines about how they're not allowed to say anything anymore. Well, I wish I had that platform not to be able to say anything. You know, I'd love a Netflix special.
No, I'm with you. I think one of the best parts about going to comedy shows is that you actually get away from the woke society and you can actually have a laugh. And I totally agree with you, Ben. I think it's great. There's definitely a space for comedy, and let's hope it stays that way. So you have to bear with me with this next question because it's a bit of a long one. When you write a novel and it gets adapted, changed, or rewritten because it's been turned into a movie or a play, it's not your book anymore. What is it like sitting there in the audience, Ben, and seeing it being performed for the first time?
Well, it's never happened to me. I've only ever had one of my novels adapted for the screen, and I did it myself, and that was Stark many, many, many years ago, and it was shot here in Australia in the early 90s. I would love now to have somebody else adapt one of my books. Nobody's asked, but I would love it. I've realized that the people who write the original, person who writes the original novel isn't necessarily the best person to adapt it. And maybe, you know, when I tried that adaptation, I was talking about Identity Crisis. Had I not done it, maybe it would have worked. So I've never had the experience you're talking about, but I would like to have it. So if there's any big TV companies out there who would like to acquire one of my novels and get somebody else to adapt it, I would love to see that happen.
And if Blackadder was to be rebooted, what would the modern version of Blackadder look like, Ben?
It's never going to be rebooted, so I don't bother about what it would look like. But it would look exactly the same, but in different costumes. I mean, Richard Curtis and I and Rowan and Stephen and Hugh, we haven't changed. Nobody changes, really. We're all what we are when we're young, and that's the way we remain. We just get older and uglier. So it would look very similar, but it's not going to happen, so you'll just have to imagine it.
No, fair enough. And who's been the funniest guy you've met of all time? And what's the funniest joke you've ever heard? I know it's a tough one, right? So maybe go with the top three.
Now, I don't deal in jokes. The best comedy is always private comedy. The best comedy is the stuff between your mates. And I've been so lucky that I've occasionally been able to make my private comedy with mates public. And the Young Ones is the best example of that, because the Young Ones was kind of how me and Rick and Aid were talking anyway. And we made that language into a big hit. So I don't really do jokes, and I can never remember when I'm asked to do them. I certainly don't do jokes in my stand-up act. It's all about comic ideas being woven together. As the funniest people, well, you know, I've worked with Rowan and Stephen and Rick and Jennifer Saunders and Dawn French. But you know, to me, the best laughs we've ever had have been the ones we have privately round a dinner table or whatever. I mean, it sounds like a boring answer, but I'm afraid I can't give you a top 10 like that. My favorite comedian, stand-up comedian, is Billy Connolly, and I'm lucky enough to have exchange correspondence with him every now and then, and I'm very, very proud of that. Occasionally, he sends me a little note. He sent me one only quite recently, and it just said, "Keep making strangers laugh." And I thought that was a very beautiful thing. So there's my very vague answer.
And you mentioned before you now call Australia home in WA, and you've got an OAM, Order of Australia Medal, but you don't have one of those in the UK. And I've heard you doing some interviews this week about that. What's going on there?
Nothing. Why? Sorry, have I been public about it this week? Have you seen I have mentioned it. Yeah. I don't know. The Poms are giving me nothing. Well, that's up to them. All I can say is that the British public still seem to like me. They come to my shows just like people do in Australia. So if people want to applaud me, then that's beautiful, but I'm certainly not asking for it. I was very pleased to get that Australian honour because as a visitor, as a new Australian, I thought it was very lovely to get something, and it was for my contribution to the arts and culture, which I thought was lovely. No, I've had nothing from the Poms, but maybe that's because they see me as one of them. I don't know. My dear friends keep getting knighted. Stephen Fry just got knighted. Emma Thompson got a damehood. Brian May got knighted. Ken Branagh got knighted. Who knows? Maybe there's a queue. I'll let you know.
Ben Elton, thanks so much for coming on Comedy Legends with Bevo, and we look forward to seeing this big performance next month with H.G. Nelson and the book, What Have I Done? You can purchase that now as well. Can't wait to have a read.
Okay, thanks a lot, Bevo. I'll see you in Adelaide.